Now, all of them reported to me, but I didn't micromanage. I didn't have to micromanage the second mate and the third mate on how to do the safety equipment. All right, today we are talking about the discipline of crew. The first of the 5 disciplines that make up this pillar is chain of command. Now, the chain of command has 3 elements that need to be mapped. Most companies only have 1. The first layer is the structure. It's the org chart, the organizational chart of your company, right? It's that bit everybody's seen that block diagram with the lines that show cascading who reports to who, right? And who's in whose department. But that is the first layer. It's absolutely necessary, but this is the problem with it is that's where most companies stop. They need to go deeper. The second layer is authority. So authority is what decisions each person is allowed to make. Maybe there's a dollar amount associated with it. Maybe there's a time limit. Maybe there's whatever structure around the decision making authority that needs to be put in place at different levels needs to also be defined for them so it's very clear what decisions they can make without escalation. And then the third layer is ownership. Ownership is clearly defining the outcomes that the position is responsible for, not the tasks, the outcomes. These 3 layers together make up a very, very well defined chain of command structure. Let me give you an example. When I was sailing as chief mate, I understood that the captain was 1 level above me. I knew that underneath me, I had my officers. I had the second mate and the third mate. And then I had my bosun, who was the senior enlisted guy on the ship. And then I had my able bodied sailors who stood the watch. And then I had my ordinary sailors. That was the deck department that directly reported to me through my authority. But as chief mate, I had other duties that I was responsible for. The second mate had other duties that he was directly responsible for. He owned the bridge, navigation. So as a second mate, I didn't have to tell him to go get the bridge in order. He knew by by repetition and by authority and ownership that he could make decisions for the bridge, what kind of pieces of equipment, how to lay out the navigation, how to set up the charts. He had authority to do that. He'd be the one that would set up the passage planning for the vessel, which the captain would approve. But it was his job to get it all ready. The third mate, cascading down, his job was all safety equipment. Right. The second mate didn't look at safety equipment. The third mate looked at safety equipment because that was the ownership and the authority that was in his realm. Now, all of them reported to me, but I didn't micromanage. I didn't have to micromanage the second mate and the third mate on how to do the safety equipment. Now, of course, if they had a question or if something didn't feel right, they could always ask, but I wasn't involved in the day to day. And none of that did I involve the captain on the day to day. I took ownership of the deck department. And so the captain didn't have to be in the weeds of did we get everything chipped and painted where we needed to today? Did the mooring lines get inspected? Did we order enough safety equipment? He didn't have to be in those weeds because those were all my domain. I owned that. I had authority to act on behalf of the deck department in a way that enabled the captain to maintain the integrity or maintain his focus on the bigger picture. Huge difference. This is a huge difference because on paper, you can have an organizational chart that looks fantastic, right? You've got all kinds of professional grade, fonts and the typing and all the different layers, and you've got all these people reporting to you. But reality sometimes is not like the spreadsheets. Who here has ever experienced that before? I know I have. So, and a lot of times what business owners are doing by accident is having a very flat chain of command, meaning you may have all these layers on paper, but the practice is there's the owner and then there's everybody else, 1 layer below, because everybody is talking to the captain. Everybody is talking to the owner and getting his feedback, and nobody can make decisions because nobody wants to make the wrong decision. And so by default, they're always escalating things to the captain or to the owner, right? and your decision-making bandwidth gets spread so thin that it's so hard. Practically what this looks like is that you have zero time to devote to strategy, zero time to devote to understanding customer behavior or market changes or strategic vision for your company, or to develop leaders inside your company. You're so busy making all these other decisions and you just feel so busy, but it's because your structure is broken. It may look good on paper, but practically speaking, it doesn't exist. And that's the difference between a company that has fully decided the layers, all three layers. If you have an organizational chart, a chain of command structure that's 3 layers deep, or just one. If this is hitting home, subscribe to The Alex Hayes Fractional COO to keep learning more. And as always, stay on course.